I think in this past year, especially, I've really learned again, or been reminded at least. I don't know that I've learned it.
Yeah, unfortunately, we're slow learners, right?
Yeah.
Human beings, we have to keep learning the same lessons over and over again.
Yeah.
At least I do. We're not in control, and I think it's important to acknowledge that the one in control, again, call it God, the universe, whatever that power is to you, has our best interest at heart.
Welcome to another episode of Relentlessly Resilient, presented by Minky Couture, a weekly podcast where people share real-life experiences and the tools they develop to move forward and live their best life. I'm Michelle Scharf.
And I'm Jennie Taylor, and it's the end of the year, and it's cold outside.
It's freezing.
And it's been a wonderful year this year to be sponsored by Minky Couture and these blankets that come in all different weights and sizes and colors. But I want to throw out, maybe over the holidays, you got a Minky, maybe you were in someone's home where they have one in the little basket by the couch. I hope you've tried the hugs, because the hug blanket is just a little stretchy. It feels like it's hugging you. So in addition to being soft and just that luxury fabric, it also has a little bit of that wrap you up kind of feeling. So loving Minky. If you haven't ever been to one of their showrooms, there's 6 in Utah. Go check them out. They also have an amazing outlet store up in Ogden at the BDO campus. Or, of course, you can find them online at minkycouture.com.
And sign up for the text messages, because
crazy deals.
Crazy deals. And
like
randomly.
50% off. Yeah, all the time.
Easily 50% off all the time. I was so excited because we were able to get our great producer, Kelly Ann Halverson, a Minky Couture Hugs
in
blanket
emerald green.
in an emerald green, which is one of her favorite colors.
Yeah. And she's already excited. She's told us she'll keep it in the car. She'll take it to the movie theater, wherever she might be. Sometimes you're cold. I saw Mom the other day at my son's basketball game. Usually gyms and high school sports are just hot inside. Yeah. This one gym was freezing. We all had our coats on inside. Oh, she was over there in her school color Minky, just looking good as could be and cozy. So I thought, I need to keep one in my car to take. Yes, I take one when I go to the movies, but I usually just drag it out of the house. So maybe I'll keep one in the car winter round this year.
The travel size is perfect for the movie theater, because it just goes right over to your toes, to your lap,
without getting on the whatever's on the floor. Popcorn and sodas,
and not too wide, so it just fits over you really nicely. It's so awesome. I keep a Minky in my car all the time. I'm gonna never go wrong having a nice little warm blanket to snuggle up with. Well, today we have our final wrap for 2024. It's been an amazing year, but it seems like it has just flown by.
I can't even. This time it's Christmas time, and a lot of things around Christmas are traditional, which means by nature we repeat them. And this year, as the holiday season has come and I found myself and my family doing some of those Christmas traditions, I feel as if I might have just done them yesterday. Yeah. And I'm sitting there in, whether it's at a Christmas concert or strolling through the lights, thinking, very overwhelming deja vu that this could not have been a year ago already.
Yeah.
And yet it has.
Yeah,
and it was a crazy year with politics and a crazy year financially, inflation and cost of living. And I just feel like there was so much that happened from start to finish in 2024 that I will admit to you, part of me is really excited to say peace out. And it wasn't a bad year. Well, there were some difficult things in this year, I won't lie. But it was a year that I feel like I could never get on top of the entire year. And I am always a fan of January. We've talked about this before. Go listen to any one of our New Year's episodes and vision boarding and starting afresh and clean slate. But this year especially, I feel like 2024, peace out. I need a chance to feel like I'm not completely underwater and behind on everything in my life. And I'm naive enough to think January will magically bring that. And it usually takes me till February or March to feel completely underwater again and just hold on tight till the end of the year. So I'm hoping to make some changes in how I organize myself, how I do and don't commit to things, and really recognizing I need to take a step back pretty much everywhere I can.
Yeah. We've talked about this offline. Jennie, you have just felt so overwhelmed. And one of the things that we were just talking about before we started recording was that it's been 6 years since we lost our spouses. And
can you believe that? Can I just pause right there?
I know.
6 years, that's a long time.
It is. And yet somehow some days it feels like it was just yesterday.
Deja vu. Did I just go to that funeral? Did I just live through all of this? Yes.
It's just, it can be so much. And I was asking you, in 6 years, your kids went from being all little kids to now you have a 1 year in college student who doesn't live with you anymore. You have a senior graduating who's going to be moving on to college. You have 2 younger boys that come
younger but bigger than me boys, right? They're both 6 foot and busy with
beautiful
school sports and things. Yeah. They don't care for school much. I'll throw that out there. So we're working on that.
Yeah. And so I was just asking you, is it so hard for you to look back where you see your kids as being small in this moment of time that happened, and then you turn around, it's been 6 years, and now your kids are mostly grown. Your baby is now 6 years old.
She's 7. She just had a birthday in November. She's 7. She's in first grade. She was a year
when he passed away.
She's in school full time.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you, here's where I'm struggling right now. And I feel like I've been kind of an open book, so nobody's going to be surprised to hear I'm kind of a mess. But I love so many of the opportunities the last 6 years have brought. This podcast, the Major Brent Taylor Foundation, working with the Army, traveling and speaking, being part of ceremonies that just feel like they're off of a movie set of what the American story looks like. I mean, some of the things I attend, you feel like it's almost a Hallmark war movie, you know? And I'm like, oh, this is my real life. And that's me in that story.
Yeah.
So there have been some beautiful things. I feel they've been inspired. I feel to a large degree God has just said, here, little girl, come with me. And I haven't had to think and decide and process. I've just been in a fog nonstop. And now I look at it and I think, oh my gosh, where did 6 years of my life go? Where did 6 years with my kids? Where did 6 years of trying to clean my house or stay on top of things? Or 6 years of checking grades on the dumb Power School app for my teenagers? I mentioned my 2 boys that don't particularly care for school. The good news is they're both on school basketball teams. Yeah. And those coaches say, go to class and do well, get your homework in and watch your citizenship. So we've got a little coach there backing me up rather than just, the mom worried about it. And so this is where I struggle. I live kind of like a pendulum. Just personally, where I'm all in and a lot of us are like that. We're just going to run with it. And then we realize we need to step back. And then sometimes we overcorrect as we step back or we beat ourselves up. So I'm trying to let myself just be and to recognize that, yes, there have been some amazing opportunities for the past 6 years. And many of those, it's okay to step back from. And I don't have to then swing the pendulum further and say it was a mistake or it was a waste or I was wrong to do that and I've neglected my children. Because I'll admit my head goes there. 6 years, where did it go? Oh my gosh, I haven't cleaned the house, I feel like, in 6 years. And I am just looking forward to kind of figuring out where am I? I don't know.
I don't think a lot of people realize, too, that you decided in the mix of all of this thing, one thing that you haven't brought up is that you're in school getting your doctorate.
Oh, yeah. That's funny. Okay, so I am. And that.
Am I calling you out on too much
You're
here?
calling me on all the things. And that would be one you'd be like, well, why would a woman who says she's so overwhelmed take that upon herself? I don't know.
Well, probably at the time.
Yes.
You were feeling directed to do it.
100%. And I will say part of my need to maybe step away from some things or kind of recenter is because I'm finding I really do love what I'm studying. I love the path that it's putting me on.
What are you studying?
So I'm studying educational leadership and policy at the University of Utah. Great program there, the doctoral level. I got a bachelor's degree before Brent and I got married, and I graduated with my master's right before my second child was born. In 2006, I graduated. So, and then I've never worked. I joke, I've been unemployed for 20 years. I mean, really, I've been raising kids. I was happy there, content there. I thought that's where I'd be the rest of my days. And a couple of years ago, in fact, in the pandemic, I started thinking, I'm going to go back to school. And I kept thinking, great, I'll go back to school in my 60s. When my kids are all gone, I'm bored looking for something to do and I'm lonely, I'll go back to school. And that was 2020. 2021, I started looking at programs online. I started looking at distance learning. I started looking at the time, maybe communications, because I found this new opportunity to speak and I love it. Or maybe politics and government, because, I just love what Brent loved. And we used to discuss this together and people are now including me in circles that I might not have otherwise been in. And I kind of bounced around for a while until finally when I got into the program, which would have been, I guess, 2023. In the spring of 2023, I'd put it off. I'd gone back and forth. I'd looked all over. And then all of a sudden, great clarity just led me to this program at the U where it's leadership, it's policy, it's teaching, It's education, which I love. All of these things coming together. And now that I'm a year and a half into the program, and there's about another year and a half left. As I get to fine tune my focus for my research studies, I'm looking at military kids in public schools. And so it's crazy. It's like a giant Venn diagram, you know how we used to do in school where the circles overlap. And all of these past experiences, me as a mom, me as a military spouse, me as a teacher and a communicator, me as maybe a leader or advocate, me as the PTA mom, it's all coming together to now where I can maybe have an impact or learn how to research and learn how to be where important conversations might make a difference for some of these kiddos like mine who don't live on a military base and certainly don't go to school on a military base. So I do feel good about the choice to be in school. I'll admit I stayed quiet about it for almost the first year because I couldn't answer anyone's question, why? And I still can't answer the question, what are you going to do with that when you're done? I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm in the program. I feel good about it, but it has made me realize something's got to give. And I think as I start to focus on things that I really feel strongly about and feel at peace with, then other things maybe start to get a little distance just because of the nature of human bandwidth.
Yeah.
I will also say, I feel like for the first couple of years, I had superhuman capacity. I think it's because the whole world was praying for us and helping us, and I wasn't living my life. The rest of everyone was. I had a bigger support group. I still do. I have a network of people who would come to my aid at any given moment. I know that. I've been so blessed. And then this last year or two, it's like once you hit that 4 or 5 year mark, everybody else is kind of doing their thing. People have moved on. People have started to say to me, oh, it's been so many years since Brent died, or he died so long ago. I had a woman the other day that said, I'm so sorry for your loss, even though it's been a while.
Yeah.
Like, well, you can still be sorry for the loss. But I've recognized.
I don't think people that haven't lost a spouse understand that the wound is there every day of your life.
Every day. Even when you're doing well. And I don't feel like I've hid from my grief or running from it or anything. I do think being busy is how I cope. And I'm tired. I'm going home. I can't wait over the holiday break between Christmas and New Year's and maybe that first week or two when January is kind of blah and everyone hates it. I just can't wait to like deep clean the house.
Yeah.
Every nook and cranny. I want to go through things. I want to create some systems in my home and in my mind. I'm not an organized person and I'm feeling the weight of that. I'm also getting older. I can't do what I used to do.
Yeah.
I'm more tired more easily.
It's so interesting as I'm listening to you talk how different our grief stories are. My husband was just a contractor. Nobody was like coming to big. Honestly, I had an amazing amount of support at his celebration of life, both from his subcontractors, people that he did work for, which being a contractor, that's odd. You know, nobody's ever happy with a contractor, but John made friends with every job that he did, and he did great work. So there was support in that moment, and to see that support come out was touching and gratifying, and I think healing for my children to see. However, I ended up quitting my job.
Right.
The only thing I took on was this podcast. I have spent the last 6 years organizing, decluttering, and letting go.
You're 6 years ahead of me, Michelle.
Letting go of everything. Dating.
Yeah.
It's something that you have not started.
Right.
But I probably have also traumatized you.
Well, anyone about my age that talks to anyone about dating might be traumatized. Not always, but.
Right. Well, I mean, it's a lot out there.
I love what you've mentioned. So much of what you've done for the past 6 years is what I'm looking forward to doing that I need to. And again, I don't know that I was avoiding it. I don't know that I was ready.
Yeah.
I wasn't ready. And so many little kids at home and so many moving pieces and so much going on that I just feel myself shifting. And
well, and there's no, what I want to point out is there's no right way to do grief.
Right.
And I think that that's the beauty of this podcast is that we're making space for people to own their path and their journey. Yeah, I did all of those things, but I also got in some bad relationships. I had some negative experiences. I didn't behave great as a mom to my adult children who were grieving. That's hard for me to sometimes admit, but at the same time, I'm not going to beat myself up over it because I was grieving and I couldn't I couldn't put aside my grief to make everything okay for everyone else.
Which is so hard because as a mom, I think that's your instinct. Your mom is too. I think of the stupid advice or the counsel they give you on an airplane.
Yeah.
To put on your oxygen mask first and then help the child or the other person beside you.
And that's actually what I was doing, but I didn't necessarily always do it in healthy, productive ways.
I found
shortly after John died, I was drinking. Yeah. I stopped drinking and I started making better choices, but I was dating a lot. I think that was hard for my kids to watch. I don't think that they could appreciate the conversations John and I had where he begged me not to wait. And I think now, 6 years later, I can tell you why. I could never understand. I'm like, I have managed to run our family our entire lives. Why does he think I need a man so bad?
What do you see now?
Masculine energy and a strong masculine in my life keeps me grounded in a way that I am not my own worst enemy.
I think I could almost say amen to that, and I might have to find that again.
Yeah. Right.
Because Brent definitely was that.
Right.
And I can definitely be my own worst enemy. No,
you went out there in a million. Sure. Yeah, you spiraled out in a million different ways, right? Mm-hmm. And I feel like for me, and I've been in this relationship with Aaron, and it hasn't been easy. And we recently moved in together, and then I became a caretaker, which was one of the things I told him I didn't want to do. But they were supposed to send him home, or they were supposed to send him after surgery to a skilled nursing unit. And for listeners that don't know, my boyfriend is a paraplegic. He's in a wheelchair. He does not have use of his legs. And so he had a full total shoulder replacement, which leaves him only one arm to make a transfer on.
1 out of 4 limbs.
And he's a grown 6'2", if he could stand, when he's not 4'8", as he likes to say. He's a 6'2" man. He's 180 pounds. I cannot lift him. So he was supposed to go to skilled nursing. They couldn't find a place that would take him. It was a series of unfortunate events. And 5 days after surgery, when he was supposed to come home 2 days later, 5 days, the hospital released him to me.
Oh my goodness.
And so then I had to be full-time caregiver until he could get his strength back. And he's just at that point now. We're at week 7, and he's using his arm more than he should, for sure. And he's really pushing it, which scares me. But it's been a journey. And this last week, though, as he's regained more of his independence, our relationship has kind of started to settle a little bit. And so I was really scared because he moved in October 1st. And so it's been a couple months
That's
of
very
this.
quick for all of that.
A lot for all of that. And
the surgery was pretty much right away.
Yeah.
Or pretty soon
it was
after.
24 days after he moved in. And those 24 days, he hadn't really moved in. So we never really got settled.
And settled.
Yeah. And so, it's just been a lot. So... So anyway, it is interesting because I feel, and I hear people say this all the time, they feel that their spouse had kind of directed. Yeah. And I have felt that way. There's a lot of things about Aaron that doesn't make sense to my friends. They're like, oh, he should be more this, more that, more whatever. And I'm like, yeah, but the parts of Aaron that people don't see that I get to see are so tender and so healing to my heart and soul. I can see while I'm here. I've also gotten to the place in this journey where I also realize love is not enough for any relationship. And we can only grow together as much as both partners want to. And so we're in that phase right now, and we're trying to make this work. He is a little bit more traditional, and he had told me early on that he would have rather been married first before we moved in together. And I think that for me, I've only been married one time, where he's been divorced before. I am I don't know how a second marriage works. And so I wanted to kind of move at this pace a little slower than that. So we're both giving and taking a little bit. But last night he asked me out on a date.
Oh.
So, he's been at home and unable to drive.
7 weeks, you said.
Yeah. Unable to drive everything. He drove. He took me out on a date. He drove me out to the Box Elder Bird Sanctuary.
Oh, cool.
And we were there for sunset. He was like pushing me like, are we leaving? Are we leaving?
Like, we've got to go now.
And I'm thinking, he's just taking me out to dinner. Like, what is this man's rush?
But you have got to hurry because sunset is the precise
and he's
time.
feeding me cheese sticks. I'm like, because I hadn't eaten breakfast or lunch at that point. And he's like, can we move this along? And I'm like, whatever.
But he didn't tell you where you were going.
He didn't.
Oh, that's
He
sweet.
didn't really tell me.
I've heard it's beautiful in winter.
Oh, it's,
because
it's
I think we think of it kind of being a summer type of outing with the kids.
Yeah.
But
I really love that place. And so he has a nickname for me. He calls me Bunny. And I call him Birdman. So we're Bunny and the Birdman.
Bunny and the Birdman. Another T-shirt for those listening. That's another T-shirt.
You know what? I think I'm going to write a book series on it. Fictitious stories. But I just love the name so much. Anyway.
That could also be like your next book too.
Yeah.
Love after loss.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
There we go.
Yeah, I didn't think about that.
1 year journey through the loss and then like kind of next chapter.
Yeah.
Anyway, there you go.
It could be.
That's a pitch.
I love it. You always have so many good ideas. So anyway, he takes me out there and we're watching the sunset, but he doesn't want to move. And I'm like, I'm getting hungry. Can we start heading back? We are 31 minutes away from the dinner place. And he goes, I fed you those cheese sticks to try.
You're like, honey, I need a steak.
And he's like, and I was really looking forward to dinner. And he's like, I brought you out here because I wanted you to see the sunset and I want to watch the moon rise with you.
Oh.
And I'm like, he knows that I am so into like astrology and like I believe that this entire
the power of the moon and the planets.
Yes, this entire planet is for us. Like, I do think that there is a coordination of stars and planets and alignment and all these
and
things.
An energy to it all.
Yeah. So I thought that was so romantic, but we sat out there and we waited and we waited and we waited. And I finally was like, I don't want to wait anymore. I'm pulling up on the app. It says 5:09. But evidently, the app was off by an hour, and I think it's because
daylight savings.
Savings. So as we drove into Ogden, the moon started to rise, and it just was so bright, right between the canyon.
Perfect.
And it was gorgeous. We didn't get to see the whole rise, but we did get to see it together.
Okay.
And he caught it just in time to point it out to me, and it was beautiful. So, and then we had a great night. So anyway, there's good things to come. And regardless, like I have learned this lesson over and over and over again, both from the moment John was diagnosed with cancer. I am not in control. I don't care how many vision boards I do. I can set the best of goals, but God or the universe has a direction and a path.
Right.
So I can step out to my own path, but that journey may take unexpected turns or different roads at different times.
I love that.
And so I don't really know where this is going with Aaron. I hope it's a lifetime. That's what I'm looking forward to. I wouldn't have done all of this had it not been for that. And we have definitely a close bond. But yeah, I think in this past year, especially, I've really learned again, or been reminded at least. I don't know that I've learned it.
Yeah, unfortunately, we're slow learners, right?
Yeah.
Human beings, we have to keep learning the same lessons over and over again. Yeah. At least I do.
That I'm just not actually the one in control.
Here's what I love about that, because that is, I wrote it down even as you said that. We're not in control. And I think it's important to acknowledge that the one in control, again, call it God, the universe, whatever that power is to you, has our best interest at heart.
Right.
I remember one day my daughter, who is studying the classics at George Washington University, she said something maybe a year or so ago, 18 years old at the time. She said, I've just come to believe the universe is on my side.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought, how profound is that?
Yeah.
Because most of us feel like the universe is out to get us.
Right.
And trust me, I have another kid who is like so conspiratorial. Everyone's out to get us. So it was refreshing. I said, what do you mean by that? She said, I just learned that, yes, I need to try. I need to work, set goals and things. And then I kind of need to just chill out, because whatever's going to happen is going to happen. And it doesn't serve me to get lost in that anxiety of making something happen. And I think that is a lesson that I'm learning again, or trying to learn again and again.
I'm right with her on that.
I love that you said step forward. You step forward, and you step forward sometimes the right direction and sometimes the wrong direction, but the universe can recalibrate. God's really good at course correcting things when we get ourselves off track. And I think that's where I feel like I am right now, in like things with the school, the service I do with the Army, of course, my kids, my home life, those things. I feel like those are worthy of my time. Not that other things aren't worthy of my time. That sounds bad. Again, as an overachiever for 45 years, it's hard for me to say. People will say, well, what are your priorities? All the things are my priorities. What do you want to do? All of the things. But as I'm realizing where I've been off alignment, maybe this past 6 to 8 months especially, is the things I say are most important to me, the things I really believe are of the most importance, haven't been getting the most of my time. They haven't been getting the most of my energy. And so it's not that I would say these other insignificant things matter more, but man,
they might
if you
be
look
more
at where
fun.
You look at where my time is, they're more demanding, louder voices. And I've lived in a really public sphere for several years that I wasn't as used to. Anyway, I'm feeling better about looking at saying no to things. I've learned it's easier to say no up front than to have to say no after you've said yes, because I'm guilty of that. I default to saying yes and then stress over trying to make it work. I'm trying to have my default be, let me think about that. Maybe. And then from maybe you can say yes or no safely, versus if I say yes, but then I think about it, and, oh my gosh, I should have said no. And I get overcommitted, because what's happened this past year is everything I've done, this podcast included, to be honest, everything I've done has suffered because I haven't been able to do anything well. I've been spread too thin. I just feel like this year's really kind of kicked my behind. I've told my kids that. I've said, I'm sorry. I feel like I failed all of you this year. And then the risk is in my head. I find that negative voice telling myself I've been failing them forever and for years and years, which isn't. I have to pause. I can kind of feel where I've gotten off track, and now I can work to get back on track and give myself the grace. I'll tell you, the hardest.
I love that you're willing to give yourself grace.
Well, it's taken along.
I am the hardest person to beat myself with a stick.
Isn't it awful?
I'm listening to you say this. One of the reasons I left the LDS church was that I am such a perfectionist, and it was negative. It was a negative experience for me because I couldn't be perfect in all ways and things. And I've swapped that out, and I have right on my computer screen on my desk, I have a big sign underneath it, and it reads, progress, not perfection.
Oh, I love that.
And I have been learning to give myself grace.
That growth mindset.
Yeah. And, I haven't had, some of my kids I've had the conversation with, which was, I wish I could have shown up differently. I wish I would have known how to support you as an adult child who have lost their father.
I wish I would have had the bandwidth or the knowledge or the psychological training. I don't have any of that.
There's no booklet, and I reached out to the hospice people, the social workers, like, how do I manage this loss with my children? And I really got very little resources.
And I don't know, and I can think of, there's books on grieving, there's podcasts, there's things, but to a certain degree, I think it's, and you've said this time and time again, the only way through this is through this. You said your therapist said that early on. The only way through this is through this. And I've had some good conversations, particularly with my older kids, to where I've had to admit, I probably disappeared. I'm sorry. I'm sorry if I completely failed you. I really was trying to put my oxygen mask on. I'm sorry if my oxygen mask suffocated you.
Yeah.
But I am me and you are you, and we can try to help each other out, but I can't take my kids' grief away even if I want to.
Right.
And trying to take their grief away would only make it worse for all of us.
And here's the thing.
So
I have been asked, and I'll be honest, and I think it's okay to talk about this on this podcast, but because we're vulnerable. Yeah. People have asked me, like, she's so busy. What about her kids? Like, people have said that to me. Of course, they're not saying it to you.
Sure.
But they will say that to me. And, the one thing that you cannot relay to a person who has not lost a spouse is when you're the mother standing there, you have your grief. You lost your person. You lost the person you were spending your entire life with.
A whole
your
future
grief
together.
Is huge.
Yeah.
It is so big. your life stops because everything you planned for is gone.
Right.
And then you turn and you have your children there. I had 4. You have 7.
Yeah.
And you see all that grief, and you're a mom. You can't help but feel that too.
No, and I'll tell you, if anybody wants to know about the kids, I promise you I have not just completely abandoned them. There are days. The reason I'm such a mess is because there's too much going on. I'm exhausted to my core. I can picture myself dozens of times literally running from my car to a basketball game to a parent-teacher conference and then back to try to make dinner. And the overwhelm is off the charts. And I think for a while I thought I could do it. I think for a while I had a lot of help. And then as that help has kind of waned out appropriately with time. But then there's sometimes I'm like, I would like to be able to raise my kids. I would like to be able to be the one that's doing some of those things I needed so much help with at first. I love that we had so much help. And that was really hard. Mm-hmm. It's hard to have neighborhood ladies say, I'll come help you put the kids to bed. How do you put 7 little kids to bed at once? Mm-hmm. You know, and when they're grief stricken and you're grief stricken. And so, no, I appreciate that. It's been 6 years in the blink of an eye of 1,000 lifetimes. And I am sure my kids might need some real therapy for years to come for me being their mom. And I tell them, I'm sorry you're...
But not just from you being their mom, from them losing a dad who is perceived as a war hero.
Right.
And rightfully so. I mean, he was intentionally shot down.
Just interesting. My boys yesterday, they were talking about future paths. And I got one kid who says he's going straight to the NBA out of high school. And what are you going to do with your life and careers? And one of them was saying something about maybe join the Army, or maybe I asked, hey, do you want to join the Army? And one of them piped up fast and said, you're not joining the Army. I won't let you. I said, oh, why? He said, because they took my dad. I'm not letting you do that. I was like, whoa. Okay. And maybe one of them will join the Army. Maybe a few of them will. I don't know. But it's a lot. And here's the thing. I appreciate that you said we can't judge from the outside. Our life has been a crazy whirlwind for 6 years. Somehow it worked for about 5.5 of the 6. I'll admit the last 6 months hasn't worked very well. And I think now my younger kids are starting to get to the point where they have questions. Anyone who's ever been with a child in grief knows that you don't not only not get over it, but you actually have to revisit it at every developmental stage. Mm-hmm. And I guess I didn't think I would too as an adult. I expected that from my kids. As they become, get to high school, you're driving, you're dating, you're graduating, your dad's not there. Someday my kids will get married and have their own kids. Their dad still won't be there. My little first grader, she has 0 memories of her own of him. And so watching for them in their developmental stages and how that impacts kids, I guess I didn't realize I would re-grieve through those stages too. Like moving Megan away to college and saying goodbye to our first oldest child. And now our oldest son's about to graduate and his dad's not there. Like high school boys, they need a dad. And these 2 boys that play basketball with the best of them but hate doing their homework, they need a dad that can help lay down the law, because I'll admit my biggest way I think I have failed my kids the last 6 years if I hadn't had a backbone, because I just haven't had the bandwidth, the energy. And it's too easy when kids are grieving to kind of get in or to let it slide. I've noticed it even with the teachers of some of my younger kids. Maybe they haven't really been up to level, but nobody wants to bother their mom because she's grieving and she's busy. And so they just kind of pass you to the next level without really getting mastery of the concept. So we have a lot of work to do. And I'm sure we'll keep doing it for decades, but particularly 2025.
Yeah.
I'm out of here.
It's really interesting. So we talk about this, and we've done a show now for 4 years. We have over 200 episodes,
Isn't that
Jennie.
Incredible.
Yeah.
Of amazing people and stories and inspiration and heartache all in one.
Yeah. And there have been times where we've recorded and I've gone home and I've gone to bed for an hour because it's so...
Or when I haven't been able to re-listen to the episode after the live recording because it's just too much.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. And so, it's really interesting to me as I look back, I wonder, what has the show taught you? I wonder, what has the show taught you?
1,000 things. One, I love that you said already, everybody has their own path.
Mm-hmm.
And you can take advice or examples or inspiration from people's paths. But again, that pendulum might swing too far to feel like you have to be that other person. No, you don't. It's not a competition. We've closed the show every single week for 4 years with, you have no idea what other people are dealing with. And I think that's been one of the most eye-opening things to me in my own grief and sometimes in my own self-pity or overwhelm is, oh my goodness, that other lady's just as overwhelmed as I am.
Mm-hmm.
Or that guy probably has just as much going on as I do. And how in the world are we all still getting out of bed every day?
Yeah.
So there's kind of that two-pronged, and wow, look what the human being can endure and learn to thrive and lift others around them. So I think
so many of our stories are people
humanity
that are just like you. They lost somebody and they started a foundation.
Yeah.
And that foundation is helping serve others.
Other people.
And it's so amazing to me the amount of love that has come out of such depths of grief. Yeah. You know, we all do it differently. I really wanted to start a foundation to help other men with prostate cancer. I wanted to get together some expensive cars and offer men to go out on the track.
For men's health, which is completely underrated.
Health, right. Which is not, nobody cares. And, we get children with Make-A-Wishes, but when it comes to men that maybe haven't got to live their childhood dreams and a little bit of their fantasy of going fast in a really expensive car. But my financial advisor said that, that could wipe you out and it's going to take all your time.
Right.
And I really consider, right. And you know that.
I do.
And I look at it, I'm like, wow, I could have done that. And, I'm so glad I didn't.
Yeah.
And it's so interesting because I was such a type A personality and I was such a driven go-getter. But in the last 6 years, especially 4, I quit my job 4 years ago. So I didn't quit my job right away, but 2 years after my husband passed away, I did. And I think about it and I look back and I'm like, it's interesting. I've become such a softer, more gentle, and more relaxed person. And I have been able to just let things go.
And
just really accept things, be with it. I have a daughter that's very estranged from me. It breaks my heart. But also, she's on her own path. And, I hope that we can repair something when she's ready, if she ever becomes ready. And if not, I guess that's the path that she decided to take,
Whereas on a different plane, you may have completely beaten yourself up for that or held yourself.
I would have.
Right. No, right. That 100%. Personality type and then fret over it, which would probably just make it worse.
Yes.
For everyone.
Yeah. And I did at first. But years of therapy and life coaching, I've finally been able to just realize that we're all on our own journey.
It's a journey.
She's going to figure things out. She's going to, life will teach her own lessons. And I have no idea what those are.
And you can't take them away from her, even if you tried.
No. And honestly, I wouldn't want to.
Yeah.
Because every hard thing I've been in my life, and, people have said, you should write a book, but nobody would believe the actual book if I wrote it. Because when I was 16, I was held at gunpoint.
Oh, my word.
The 4th day on my first real job. And that was back in the day where they didn't offer therapy. They closed the shop, and then I went to work the next day.
Oh, my word.
Yeah.
As a kid.
No, I had to go through therapy in my 20s after I'd already raised children, moved out of the state. And I had 2 small children when I went into therapy for post-traumatic stress.
And said, help me process this.
Yes. And so, that experience cost me a lot. And that experience also taught me a lot. And then there was issues with my husband, and there was a round of time where there was some domestic violence stuff, and we had to go to therapy and counseling, and I fought for our marriage, and I fought to make everything happen. And the journey I've been on has not been easy, but it has been so worth it. And I wouldn't trade it for anything. So we sit and listen to all of these other stories, and I'm like, it's really interesting that I don't want that one.
No.
So it's we accept the ones that we're given.
Life is so custom fit.
Yeah.
Isn't that crazy?
Yeah. And you know what's interesting is I don't actually believe that God gives us the tragedy. I believe that we actually are just living in a mortal existence.
Agreed,
so
100%.
We're bumping up against. Listen,
yes,
God did not take Brent,
and He didn't take John.
No, God did not give John cancer, and
He wasn't trying to teach you a lesson.
Brent was not taken by someone who decided to basically assassinate him. That was not done so that you could grow.
Right.
However, you get to choose the growth that you're going to make out of it.
I believe that 100%, Michelle.
And I think that for me, that's the biggest thing that I've learned in 4 years of sitting in this room and listening to story after story. Some people are actually just getting out life. Some of the people we've interviewed, I thought, it's not necessarily true resilience, but you're on the path.
You're on the path.
You're on the path, and you're going to figure it out.
And it does ebb and flow, even for the most resilient.
Yes. Yeah. Yes. And I think what I've learned is that the faster you can see yourself in a situation that you don't want to be in and that is not working for you, or something tragic happens to you, the faster you can look at this situation and say, okay, this is reality, not a victim mindset, not a martyr mindset, not any of those things. The sooner you can just look at it for what it is, an accountable version of that story. My husband got cancer and died. What am I going to take from this and grow from it? And, somebody actually asked me that last week, and I said, well, the one thing about John dying is I would have never gotten the opportunity to learn the lessons and to feel the amount of love that we had for each other had he not gone, because grief will teach you how deep that love is. Yeah. And I'm grateful for that. Profound. And one thing I know is I have an incredible amount of love to give. And I am so happy to be able to be in a relationship where I can give so freely. And I know how fragile it all is.
And a relationship where you can receive that love too.
Yeah.
Because like you said, there have been some that aren't healthy or aren't balanced.
Yeah. And, my willingness to actually be vulnerable, which I think is also a key component of resilience.
Yeah.
It takes courage to be vulnerable. Brene Brown says that.
Right.
Because when you allow your heart to open up, when you already know how bad the loss can be, is really beautiful. It's really beautiful to be able to open up your heart at that level. Yeah. And so for me, sitting on this show, I have learned to be a kinder person, be more patient with people, because I don't know their story.
Right.
And I don't know what they're dealing with. And I get to pat myself on the back for being able to take the bad things of my life and always look for the good in them. And what can I learn
and create
here?
Lessons. Yeah.
And create lessons.
Yeah.
So that I can move forward, taking a positive out of a bad situation and move on.
And I think that's what this show has been about.
Yeah.
Right?
It has
So
been.
here we are. It's the end of 2024.
Yeah.
Really quickly, Michelle, before we wrap up, what's next?
Well, unfortunately, as Jennie has alluded to many times throughout this episode, Jennie will no longer be co-hosting Relentlessly Resilient with me. I do want to say, Jennie, though, I appreciate our friendship. I wish that we had even had more time together. I love you so much.
I feel the same way, Michelle.
And I am so glad that I asked you to be my co-host on the show. And I think it has been a good amount of lessons for both of us.
For both of us, yeah. No, it's been an amazing. My friendship with you, your mentorship to me, whether you know it or not, has been huge in my life. So thank you.
I really appreciate it.
And it will continue in years to come as I continue to look to you for some of that peace and guidance that I haven't yet sought as diligently as you have in my own path yet. And again, not to say that I haven't been at peace, but I'm on a different journey now than I've been for the past few years. And I'm really excited for it.
And I've been watching it happen. We had this conversation about a month or two ago, and maybe a month ago, I don't know. My time frame.
It's a blur.
It
was all sometime within the last about 6 months, because the last 6 months is where I just felt myself going off the rails.
Yeah. And I was watching it happen. And I thought, I don't know. She doesn't seem as invested. She seems a little disconnected. I don't know what's going on here. And we had this very honest conversation about it off air. And you just said, I just can't do it anymore. But I really appreciate all the time. We've done this show for free. We've never been paying a dime.
200 episodes.
200 episodes every 4 years out of 4 million podcasts that are out there. We haven't done so bad on the rating scales.
No, we've done a great job.
Not in the very top, but we've made it up to the top 20 or 30 in Apple Podcasts several times. Yeah, with that consistency of show. And what is in the future for me? I intend to continue with the show. I intend to turn it into more coaching-based principles on resiliency.
Which is amazing because 4 years ago, you hadn't done your coaching certification.
I had not done my coaching.
And that can be a completely new level.
Yeah. So
I'll be your biggest fan.
It'll be more of the same, a little less heavy on the trauma stories, a little bit more on the recovery side. The tools side.
And that's what we need. We all need the tools.
Yeah. That was my intention for the show when it first started. But then as people came on and as I had them share, a lot of these people that have come on to this point were people that I met through politics. I'm no longer involved really in politics. I have a lot of friends. I'm socially engaged with some people that are still politically connected, but I'm not out there meeting the amount of people that I used to meet. So I hope to keep up with a weekly podcast. We'll see how it goes. But those stories and those people that have come on and have shared their stories, those were Sherry's stories that carried me in my grief. I knew that if they had done these hard things, very different story. A house burning down, a child being drowning, a million different stories. And I knew that if they could survive really hard things that I perceived as really hard things, that I could proceed.
You could find a way.
And I could find a way to live through my grief. And it was hard. There were times where I literally thought I was going to die of a broken heart. And, I did it. I survived. I made it through. And so I don't have any regret. I'm excited about the future. This is also the last time we'll be in studio, the last time I will be in studio. I am leaving KSL. I want to do this on my own, and I don't want any restrictions that have been placed around me to be there moving forward. So it'll still be a good, clean show, but it's all the good things, but just without having to get approval for some of the content that I want to.
And it's our last
share.
day with Kellyanne Halverson, who's been an amazing producer.
Scenes.
She's been not just technically, professionally amazing, but she's become a dear friend.
Yeah.
She hears us either ranting and raving or really excited when we come in the studio. We've kind of created this bond between the three of us as we come in usually each Monday. And so, Kellyanne, huge thank you to you.
And I
best
feel like
wishes
it's
to you.
kind of been the Three Musketeers kind of at times.
Us against the world.
Yeah, us against a lot of things. But also we bring
helping
in
each other.
We bring in a guest, and it's the three of us, and we're like, we put our arms around them, and it's just been a warm. Kellyanne couldn't have been. We started out with Josh, who was a great producer.
Tilton did a great job.
He did a great job, and I really appreciate his help. But when they gave us Kellyanne, it bumped up the show to a whole new level. Her content, her social media, I'm probably not going to be able to do quite as well.
That consistency again, that's been so key.
Yeah.
And just adding to this conversation about, the universe or God providing you what it needs at the time. I needed this at the time. Like there's a reason God wanted me to sit multiple times a week and listen over and over and over again to these stories and these tools of resilience and to become friends with you guys. And I'm so very grateful that, Michelle, you get to keep doing that. And Jenny, you get to keep doing all the amazing things you're going to do. And I'm going to make you hold to that, keeping like
I'm going to go do the dishes. I can't tell you how excited I am.
Because I know you're just going to keep filling that space.
I just want to clean the closet.
And this show has meant so much to me, and being able to people trusting us with these stories and trusting me with editing them and putting them out there. And it's just been an absolute honor. And I'm so excited to see where you guys go with this.
And I think we've created a space for people to share their stories. And that might be maybe my favorite part of it is we know we all have stories, but the chance to tell a story. And if you're listening and you have a story to tell, whether it's on a podcast or not, take the time, find the opportunity to reflect on your own life lessons, because so many people can benefit from what you've learned and endured and some of the horrible, awful things that maybe you don't want to revisit. And there's a balance of how you can talk about or share. But I'm with Michelle and saying, I've learned, Kellyanne, same thing. I've learned so much from other people's resilience. People that otherwise, if they hadn't come on this show, I might not have known at all what they've been through because they just look so put together on the surface. Mm-hmm. And so maybe that art of human storytelling that really is the heart of connecting from one human to another. So I'm excited to see the show continue. And grateful to all of our listeners more than anything. Grateful to KSL for
Jennie, you're
hosting.
welcome on my show at any
I'm
time.
coming. We'll do a check-in. Yeah.
Oh, I'm going to hold you to that. What we should do quarterly check-ins with Jennie Taylor.
How much have you said no to this time? It's going to be great.
Yeah. Well, I really appreciate one that you got so real and honest. And it was hard for you.
Well, it was.
You were in tears. And I do want to let everyone know, when you're passionate about so many things, it's hard to let go of anything.
It is.
And I love that you're prioritizing yourself, your energy level, and your children.
I want to say thank you for being supportive of that decision and that need, because I'll admit I was, not that I'm scared of you, I was afraid to have that conversation because I felt like I was just letting you down. I'm like, I have to tell Michelle. And
you were surprised when I was like, oh,
she's like, I've seen it coming. I know.
I'm
really?
Like, oh, thank you.
Like, would you finally just say it? I know.
And I said to you,
I'm sorry I was such an obvious mess. It's been such a rough 6 months.
But Jennie, what did I say to you? I said, I'm so proud of you.
You did.
I said, I'm so proud of you. I've seen you struggling. I don't want this to be a part of the struggle. If you need to go, it's okay. It's okay. And I was so proud of you because
and that was beautiful. Thank you. I needed
that you were breaking through.
And I pulled you aside in August and said, you need a sabbatical.
I know. And I was like, I do, but I don't know how to say that because I've spent 45 years not saying that. But yes, thank you to both of you for loving and supporting me through that and for maybe seeing before I was ready to see it, the obvious. And to our listeners, that I think that's part of resilient. I don't feel I'm less resilient than I was 6 months ago. In fact, I feel like I'm being more resilient.
Absolutely.
Because of that vulnerability, because of that courage to say, I gotta go home for a minute. I gotta go home.
Well, I could see it, but I knew that you needed to get it, and me saying anything preemptively was not going to help. And I just thought, I'm going to be patient. And
bless your heart.
and even when you shared it with me, I'm like, Jennie, I've had the same. 2 years in, I went through 6 months of like, I just can't do this podcast anymore. It's so hard. And then, I got through it, but.
And maybe I think I thought I would get through it at the beginning. And going back to school was part of it, like the busyness, but I just appreciate so much.
This has been a labor of love. It's taken a lot of our time. It's taken a lot of time and energy. And
it's a lot of energy because you are hearing other people's trauma. I mean, I think of therapists who work in the profession, and how do you not internalize that and take that home when you're already dealing with your own? So it's been inspiring and sometimes heavy.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm so glad that we did this. I'm so glad that you came on this journey with me. I'm so glad
you invited me.
Friendship,
which will continue,
and I'm really excited to see what you do. Everybody's like, "Oh, I'm so excited for you, Michelle," and I'm like, I don't even know exactly what this all means yet. But
still it's going to be something great.
But everyone says it's going to be great.
It's going to be great.
I've gotten a few text messages with some people who I've shared what's going on with, and they said, Michelle, you have an incredible voice.
You do.
And you have a message, and there's few people with the amount of compassion that you have.
And it's not just the voice you have an ability to give others voice. And you know that. We've talked about that offline and probably online before. People tell you their whole soul. They share that story. Your very energy, your presence empowers people to speak their voice. And that's, I think, what's going to be so magical.
Yeah, well, thank you.
Hey, 2025, here we come.
Hey, you guys, before you forget, because I know you will, my 11th commandment is market thyself. Where can people find you as we move on?
I do have relentlesslyresilient.com, and we are doing a real retreat come April 25th and 26th. And Jennie, you will be there with
I will be there. I'm excited.
With your
I'll be BT5.
The BT5.
I'll be one of the
5.
presenters, and I'm excited. That's with Heather Higgins, and we talked about it in the fall, and then the fall, that was part of where everything was just getting so overwhelming on my end, and April will be beautiful.
I'm going to try to attend. No, I'm going to attend. I'm going to make that commitment right now.
And the website again, just relentlesslyresilient.com.
Yeah.
Right? You can't forget that.
Yeah, relentlesslyresilient.com. And then, of course, we have our social media, Instagram and
your coaching
Facebook,
business.
Relentlessly Resilient Podcast on Facebook.
On Instagram.
On Instagram, and the Relentlessly Resilient on Facebook. And then, of course, you can find Michelle Scharf Coaching, Resilient Coach.
Well, and for myself, you can find me at kahalvo.com because I'm Kellyanne Halverson. So that's KAHALV as in Victor O.com. And, I'm still going to be doing podcasts here. I'm actually moving up to Deseret News. So it's going to be interesting to add a little bit more under that category. And don't worry, I'll still be doing Fan Effect movie reviews and stuff. That was part of this whole arrangement is, can I please keep doing nerdy things? Which they graciously said yes to. But you can always find me on my website. You can see what I've written, little books. You can reach out to me to get some of those crafts that I've making. I just made you guys these cute little mice here for Christmas as well. But yeah, that's where you'll find me. And this is so weird.
We'll figure
and
that out.
I do have a website that's JennieTaylorSpeaks.com. And maybe in a few years I will flesh that out. But for now, it's at least there. So if you want to find me, you can find me there. But I think mostly you'll find me at home or with my kids, probably at a basketball game or a swimming pool. Because we've got lots of high school sports happening right now, and I love
it. This is kind of a long episode, but I think this is a really cool thing. I called you on the way, and you were in the airport, and you are so difficult to get a hold of.
I'm so sorry.
I got in the door, and I called Jennie, and I was like, Jennie, I needed to call you. I needed to tell you. Oh, I think I texted you first, and you called me back, and you're like, I'm in between flights.
I'm gonna lay over.
And you were having a little bit of a breakdown. And you were doubting yourself and you were struggling. You were like, I don't even know if I should be going to this event. And so she went and she spoke at like a county, a national county,
national cities and towns. Mm-hmm.
Anyway, and I called to tell you something that one of my girlfriends that I don't hang out with regularly had called and said, does Jennie have a son that swims? And is his name Lincoln? And we figured it out. And I'm like, yes, that's Jennie Taylor's son. She goes, oh my gosh, I've been watching this kid. I didn't realize it was the same kid. So I tell Jennie the story. She's crying. And then she starts to tell me about all her insecurities and her push and pull between this whole thing that's going on. But I wanted to tell you, here's the follow-up to that story, Jennie. I encourage you. I'm like, look, you've got this in your sleep. Don't worry about preparing too much. You're going to have this handled.
You did. You gave me the pep talk I needed when I was losing my mind.
Yeah. I'm like, Jennie, go to the hotel and just rest, make a note card and be done with it. You have this in your sleep. And then I saw online, because I have all of these like friends, and one of them got you the gig. And he posts about how amazing and brilliant you were and all this stuff.
Oh, good. Oh, that's so nice of him.
I saw that post and I'm like, oh, here she was. I told you have this in your sleep.
No, I don't feel very capable of anything right now.
I'm a natural speaker one-on-one. I would love to be able to do a TED Talk. I would love to be able to speak. And maybe one day I will grow courage and be able to gain that kind of voice in front of people. I really struggle with it. I want to have that. You do it so naturally. Thank
you.
Comes to you.
You've got that one-on-one ability to connect with people where I'm not always the best at that. So,
well,
we'll complement each other. We'll help each other.
Yeah, we can learn a lot from each other.
And here comes 2025.
Here comes 2025, and you can find Relentlessly Resilient at relentlesslyresilient.com, and on Spotify or Apple. It will still be wherever you get your podcast.
And one last time, thank you to Kellyanne Halverson and KSL Studios. A huge thanks to Minky and Cheryl Worsley in the podcast department. Huge thank you to Minky Couture for being our presenting sponsor this year, and for the warmth and just that comfort that their blankets provide to so many people. And remember, whatever you do today, remember to be kind. You have no idea the struggles other people are dealing with in their lives. Take care, everybody.
Bye.
We love you.